Hey guys, welcome back to The Readers. I hope you are having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first one is a pro-revenge story. I want to start this off by clarifying that this isn't my story. It belongs to my best friend Sarah, and I'll need to leave out certain details since much of the information isn't mine to share. The story begins in early 2024. Sarah worked in HR and managed payroll at what was essentially a senior living facility, though they preferred to call it a premium retirement community. The place had your typical old boys club atmosphere, with all the top executives being men in their 60s who did minimal work for maximum pay. Women frequently complained about unfair treatment, and several were fired for ridiculous reasons only to watch their male colleagues receive raises shortly after. "You wouldn't believe what happened today," Sarah told me over coffee one afternoon. "Janet from accounting got fired because she took too many bathroom breaks. 2 days later, they gave Tom a promotion for exceptional dedication. That was bad enough. But what really set things in motion was when they fired Sarah's manager, Maria, for taking a week off after a serious skiing accident that left her with a broken femur. The HR department was already running on fumes, so Sarah had to shoulder all of Maria's responsibilities without any additional compensation. "I deserve fair compensation for this extra work," Sarah told her director, Mark, during one of their meetings. "We're all having to adapt in these challenging times," he responded dismissively, barely looking up from his phone. She requested a pay increase 3 more times over the next few weeks. Each time the answer was no. Then about a month later, they hired Richard Thompson, a guy in his late 50s, as the new manager, paying him nearly double what Maria had earned. "Do you need access to the payroll system?" Sarah asked Richard during his first week. "I'll get to that when I need to," he replied, waving her off. Richard turned out to be practically useless. Sarah continued handling all the managerial duties because Richard never even bothered to request access to the necessary systems. For 6 months, she repeatedly tried to warn him about issues with their procedures, especially regarding payroll. She emphasized that she was the only employee who knew how to operate their customized payroll system and had exclusive access to it. "Mr. Thompson, we really need to address these system vulnerabilities," she'd say during their weekly meetings. "Listen, sweetheart," he'd respond, leaning back in his chair. "You're easily replaceable. Just do your job and stop trying to tell me how to do mine." In March 2024, Sarah had enough. She cleverly set up an automated system using her credentials to process her legitimate salary payments. Then, she strategically submitted her 2-week notice right before a company-wide vacation week, which coincided with her only colleague's 2-week trip to Europe. "You really think you're irreplaceable?" Richard scoffed when she handed in her notice. "I can find someone to do your job tomorrow." What Richard didn't know was that Sarah had extensively modified the payroll software during her tenure. Nothing malicious, but she had customized it significantly from its original version. She remained the only person who knew how to operate it properly and had access to the crucial financial data needed for payroll processing. After she left, the company missed 2 entire pay periods because they literally couldn't process payments. Meanwhile, Sarah's automated system kept paying her salary because they couldn't figure out how to disable it. "Sarah, please!" The CEO's voice was notably less arrogant when he called her in April. "We need your help with this situation." For the past 6 months, she's been earning $250 per hour as a consultant, working remotely for 5 hours weekly to manage their payroll. The best part? She wrote a script that handles everything automatically. She just needs to click one button. She's now working full-time at a better company, but still enjoys her weekly consulting income. "Sometimes karma needs a little help," she told me recently, laughing while showing me her latest consulting invoice. The next one is an entitled people's story. I've been in the restaurant business for over 15 years, working my way up from dishwasher to line cook to sous chef. After years of saving and planning, I finally opened my own place, a casual fine dining restaurant focusing on local ingredients and modern American cuisine. The location I found was perfect, a converted historic building in a mixed residential commercial area with great foot traffic and parking. The restaurant was doing well until the president of the local homeowner association started causing problems. Even though my building wasn't part of their association, she decided my restaurant was disrupting the peaceful character of the neighborhood. It started with complaints about parking. Even though we had our own dedicated lot, she claimed our customers were taking up street parking meant for residents. Then she complained about cooking smells despite our industrial ventilation system that met all codes. But things really escalated when she found out I lived in an apartment above my restaurant. One day during dinner service, Karen marched into my kitchen demanding to speak to the owner. I was in the middle of expediting orders but stepped away briefly. "You need to shut down this restaurant immediately," she declared. "This is a residential neighborhood and commercial activity is not permitted." "Ma'am, this building is zoned for mixed use. I have all the proper permits and licenses." "Well, I'm the homeowner association president, and I say you can't live here and run a business. It's one or the other. You have 48 hours to cease operations." I tried explaining that her homeowner association had no authority over my property, but she wouldn't listen. She started harassing my staff and customers, standing outside with a sign claiming we were operating illegally. She even called the health department multiple times with false complaints, causing unnecessary inspections that disrupted service. The final straw came when she somehow got my personal cell number and started calling repeatedly during dinner service. I had my lawyer send her a cease and desist letter, but she ignored it, so we took her to court for harassment and interference with business. In court, she tried arguing that the homeowner association's rules prohibited home-based businesses. The judge quickly shut that down, pointing out that my building wasn't part of her homeowner association and was properly zoned for both residential and commercial use. She also couldn't provide any evidence of actual harm or nuisance caused by my restaurant. The judge granted a permanent restraining order barring her from entering my property or contacting me. She was also ordered to pay damages for lost business during her harassment campaign. The cherry on top was when the homeowner association board removed her as president after learning about her behavior and the costs they'd incurred from her actions. These days, business is better than ever. The neighborhood actually loves having a nice restaurant nearby. Our weekend brunch is especially popular with local families. Karen still lives in the area but doesn't dare cause any more trouble. Sometimes I see her walking past, glaring through the windows while people enjoy their meals. I just smile and focus on running my kitchen. The next one is a petty revenge story. Late 80s, somewhat rural setting. I am driving home from work in the summer, and this older guy in front of me throws a McDonald's soda cup out the window of his car, which I find irksome. It lands in the road, and he keeps going for no more than a third of a mile, then turns into his driveway, which just infuriates me. So I bust a U-turn and go back to pick up the cup, still laying in the road, and when I go back by his house, I chuck it out my window onto his front lawn. Later that night, I am giggling, imagining the guy coming out to find his own trash back on his own lawn. Couple weeks later, I'm coming down the same road and thinking about this guy, and I had been traveling a little, so there was some garbage from a few fast food meals and road snacks on the floor of the car. The inspiration hits. I roll up on this guy's house and throw it, all of it, out on his front lawn. I do this every couple of weeks for the rest of the summer. That fall, I moved out of state, but would come back to visit every couple of months. So I started saving all of my road trash, and whenever I would come home, I'd go and empty it out all over his front lawn. Fast food bags, candy wrappers, soda bottles, all of it. There'd be 30 or 40 pieces of garbage all down the road front. Then I would laugh myself silly thinking about the guy coming out to find it. This went on for the better part of 3 years, and then I started to worry that maybe he had died or moved while I was gone, and I was menacing some innocent people, so at some point I stopped. Still makes me chuckle 40 years later to imagine how mad it must have made him. And yeah, could never get away with something like that these days. The next one is a malicious compliance story. Many years ago, I was working in my state's police department. We got a new inspector at the station, and he wanted to chart what all the sections of the station did and instituted a daily diary where we had to put in an account for every minute of the shift. Lots of grumbling from the troops over the next few weeks. The inspector would go off about the forms not being recorded properly every day at change of shifts, and said that there would be consequences if they did not truly reflect what we did. I spoke to my shift and cue malicious compliance. I used to get into work 30-odd minutes early to fuel the car, gather my crime-fighting kit, wash the car, and prepare for the shift. Now, I didn't do this until the minute my shift started. I would then complete these tasks after having started, then calibrate the radar, see what black spots were to be targeted for day, look at work emails, review the previous night's occurrences, and a myriad or other things before heading out onto the road. Now, on each and everything I did, I would record it precisely, even recording the record on the record. Each traffic stop, each job, stopping to give directions or advice would go on the sheet. Then I would return to the station for lunch. Normally, I would grab it on the go or eat it in my car, but hey, he wants the official day's duties. Our employment law required that each officer was entitled to 1 half-hour uninterrupted meal break each shift after 5 hours of duty. The inspector, trying to make the station more efficient, started to roster meals before this time. Boss tried to order us to take our meals as recorded on the roster. We all disregarded it and took our meals after the 5 hours. At the end of the day, we attached the industrial award to the daily record and wrote, as per industrial law, meal break taken at first possible time after 5 hours. He went off and threatened us to take the meals as written or write-ups would happen. That was reported to the union, who threatened industrial and legal action, which he would be personally responsible for. He was forced to rescind that threat, so he gave up on that and doubled down on the daily reporting writing officers up for non-compliance. I told them all I was doing, and the single page issued at the beginning of the shift was now 3 to 4 pages long, each and every day for 80 officers for 3 shifts. We swamped him with the information. In addition, if a job was broadcast, we were forced to abandon our meal break and attend to the job. Most times we could not return to finish our meals, so often went hungry. Now, the other part of our meal break rule was that if we did not have a full 1/2 hour uninterrupted meal break, then we would be paid the whole meal break. The boss had a habit of going into the meal room to have an idiot complain or harass the officers in there, so when he did this, it was recorded as an interruption. After a few weeks, productivity was down, hours wasted, his budget being blown out as he had to pay for interrupted lunch breaks, which he then denied payments until the union lodged a court injunction and took the police department to court for each and every single breach for each person and shift. This amounted to hundreds of matters and thousands of dollars. He said all the daily reporting logs with our interrupted meal breaks were somehow lost. That's okay, the union says. Here are the copies taken. He argued that they were done after the court date and were false. But everyone also took copies after they were lodged with his admin assistant with his received stamp on it. Fail for him. The department's solicitor approached the union with an offer for us to withdraw the matter. They offered 25% of what we were owed and all the reprimands would be lifted. It was rejected and the full 100% was demanded and the reprimands totally withdrawn and deleted from the records. His honor ruled in our favor in every single matter. We were all awarded out meal money and compensation for the time wasted with the department fighting this all the way. He was directed him to pay when claimed and all reprimands deleted immediately or penalties would be issued. He had 2 days to comply. This was Friday afternoon, so he had the weekend to get rid of them. Took him until 9 p.m. Sunday night to do it, and he wasn't paid for the time. As we swamped his tray with over 160 pages of daily worksheets each and every shift every day, that's at least 480 pages a day of compliance, he then tried to demand that we only put serious issues down. We all refused, as he had already informed us all that if we did not put everything down, we would be charged with disobedience. But if we followed his new order, we would be disobeying his previous order. He then threatened to charge us all with disobedience if we did not do the new rule. The sergeant sent all this to the union with the threats and to his boss and his boss's boss. Wouldn't you know, several days later, all his daily reporting sheets were not to be used any longer. Apparently, the union sat down with the district command bosses and let them know that this would be a continuing matter if the inspector was not moved and that their own positions were now up for review of the mismanagement they allowed and the fine the department received from court. The commissioner of police was notorious for terminating those who stuffed around with the troops and dragged the department into court for mismanagement. They had already been embarrassed in court, had the police department received court costs and fined for the breaches and could see another court appearance looming and saw the damage he was doing to the station and promptly transferred him to the district office where he could not supervise anyone. His contract was not renewed 8 months later and left the department. Those who had known the inspector say he had no idea what problems he caused and was just trying to make the organization more efficient. When they told him how much he made things worse, he just said that the troops never minded missing lunch or eating in the cars before. They told him that his demand to strictly follow policy alienated everyone and to put another daily reporting sheet on top of the department's official daily diary was just superfluous. At the end of the day, he had no clue why he lost his job. There were many other stupid things he did, like not issuing pens until the ones we had were fully out of ink, so we had no pen to sign the requisition, and his admin staff were instructed not to lend pens out to sign or we could buy a pen from them. The exemption to the rule that if it was lost, we could get another one. Cue more malicious compliance. The next one is an entitled People's Story. So I, 28M, have a friend who is in her 50s. We are close friends. The kind where you don't talk often, but when you do, it's always really good. We mainly talk about our pets, and she's been there for me a lot. I value her and our friendship. I really, really do. There's only one issue. You see, one does not disagree with her. She has very strong opinions and will shove them down everyone's throat. She's notorious in all pet stores and for all the wrong reasons. I am not too bothered by it. I just know when to shut my mouth and agree. Arguing is not worth it, and I find our friendship more important than being right about something. Edit. It was brought to my attention that this kinda comes off as me condoning this behavior. What I meant is that I wasn't too bothered with how she treated me, not how she treated others. With how our friendship was, I didn't really get to see her treat others this way. I was told stories, but she always made it sound like they provoked it, and I believed it. That's why it didn't bother me. Only when writing this post, I started to connect the dots. And as I mentioned in my other edit, I sometimes struggle with knowing what is normal or not. I now know this is not normal. It has never been a problem, until now. When I brought up wanting a Doberman, she was rather judgmental, saying that I am too insecure to raise a dog and that a dog wouldn't solve my mental problems. I found her assumptions hurtful and untrue, even if she probably meant well. Obviously, a dog won't make my mental illness go away, but I think taking care of a dog and having a companion has been helpful for a lot of people, especially with mental illness. It just so happens that a Doberman is exactly what I want, as they fit my lifestyle. I'm also not as spineless or insecure as she made me out to be. It's just that I don't argue with her because I know she would end our whole friendship over me not agreeing on something. I don't waste my energy on an argument that won't lead anywhere, so I just didn't mention it again, and I wasn't super upset. I just decided not to talk to her about it. A few weeks later, I sent a video of a puppy I have my eyes on. I hoped that maybe she'd be happy for me now. Somehow I thought she would be. Instead, she sent me a voice message demanding I tell her which exact reasons I have to get a Doberman. It made me feel like I had to justify my decision to her, like I need her permission. Me having this dog won't affect her. So I find this weird and honestly kind of entitled. Also, I knew she'd just disagree with all my reasons. So I politely said that I know she doesn't think that I am the right person for this, but that I disagree and I have done a lot of research, which I definitely have. I have considered this for literal years, although I didn't talk to her about that until I previously mentioned the dog. I just didn't see a reason to, and I still don't. Like I said, it doesn't affect her, and it's not like we talk a lot, nor do we talk about everything. I told her she has nothing to worry about, and that the decision wasn't impulsive. She was immediately upset. She said I was very defensive, even though I acted calm and polite. However, I simply didn't agree, and I didn't want to justify my decision. This is probably the first time I said no to her. She started going off about how dangerous this dog is, that it's not the right breed for me, that she knows a lot more about this than me, and that I should be able to explain why I want one, especially to her. Now, she does know a lot about animals, but judging by what she said about the breed, she doesn't know as much as she claims. They were very outdated views, and some of the facts were just wrong. She said that I only want this dog to have as a shield, and that I am going to end up with a weapon I can't control, etc. I said multiple times that I understand and respect her opinion, and that I was sorry for upsetting her, but that I don't agree and didn't like her initial question. According to her, I turned her into someone she's not, and I was extremely defensive. Again, I was very calm and never accusatory, while she sent me long voice messages in which she was yelling and crying. It seems everything I said just made her more angry. She ended by saying I've insulted her and that I should know what that feels like. I said I was sorry about that and that I hope we can talk about this when we're both calm. I am extremely confused about what I did wrong, and I am honestly kind of angry because I feel like she's simply mad at me for not agreeing with her. She knows as well as I do that I will put all of my time and energy into this dog, that I am someone who will make well-informed decisions and won't hesitate to ask a professional dog trainer for guidance. And even if we are close, we are not so close that I need to involve her into a decision like this, but it seems she thinks I can't do this without her approval. Anyway, I haven't heard from her since, and I suspect she expects me to apologize. I'm not sure what to do, except wait until she calms down and then starts talking to me again like nothing happened. I might have to rethink this friendship. Thank you for watching. I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. We'll see you again tomorrow.